Having that vision is about you and your spouse being on the same page. Do you need to be on the same page for everything? No. But if you're not on the same page for 70, 80, 90%, you're going to have speed bumps along the way.
This is where we all go wrong in relationships. We forget that we're actually on the same team.
Men are wired for logic and women are wired for emotion. When you really think about it,
When you say women are wired for emotion, I laugh. I'm like, no, actually women are wired for magic.
sometimes couples, they forget that there's two sides to every coin. And sometimes we get so set in our way that we want it to be one way that we forget that maybe the spouse's idea is a little bit better. If we seek to listen, we could literally see a different way of thinking and behaving that could radically shift things for the better. Welcome to Coaching by the Beach, where we help you materialize the vision you have for your business, your life, your family, and the world. I'm Trevor McGregor, Master Coach.
And I'm Leesa McGregor, international best-selling author, speaker, and entrepreneur. Together, we've built an 8-figure empire, and we've broken free from the ordinary to lead lives of extraordinary freedom, impact, and fulfillment. And now we're here to guide you to do the same.
If you've been searching for more success, more wealth, and more freedom, tune in and let's embark on this journey together. Welcome back to Coaching by the Beach. I'm Coach Trevor McGregor here with the beautiful Leesa McGregor. Leesa, how are you?
I am so good.
Can you believe what we're about to talk about today?
No, I'm kind of scared, actually.
Well, I got to ask, why are you scared?
Well, I just, my gosh, like getting married and starting a business with your husband is not for the faint of heart. And we've been through a journey with each other. 15 years is a long time to be with someone. And I always tell people that, you're my one true love. And, we've been through a roller coaster. We've been through the ups, the downs, the pain, the struggle, the misunderstanding with each other, and I want to share with our listeners today in a way that we open up and tell you, we do not profess to be perfect. We do not profess. And at the same time, we know that we're on a mission. We're on a mission to do so much more than just, have an argument with each other and then just call it a day, right? Like you've got to get through it. You've got to get through the challenges and stay back and stay on top of where you really want to go in life. And so maybe that's where we want to start, honey, is let's talk about like, what is the thing that's kept us going over the years? I personally think that what that has been is our vision. We always started with this one wild idea for what we wanted our lives to look like. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think that's perfect because having that vision is about you and your spouse being on the same page, right? Do you need to be on the same page for everything? No. But if you're not on the same page for 70, 80, 90%, you're going to have speed bumps along the way, just like we've had and other clients that we coach, a lot of power couples, a lot of doctors, attorneys, business owners, Fortune 500 executives, where, you know what? It could be that you had one spouse that was working in a corporate job and the other one was maybe an entrepreneur. And then somebody gets, bought out or downsized or laid off, where all of a sudden, kind of even, expanded during the pandemic, where now you're living under the same roof. Nobody's leaving, at 8 a.m. to go to an office, but you're living under the same roof and creating businesses, which is literally creating the financial wherewithal to run the household or put food on the table or pay the mortgage. And so I think the first dynamic is it doesn't matter if you've already started a business with your spouse or you're going to be, or one foot's in or one foot's out, you're not alone. And that's what we're really going to unpack here is that having that vision is really almost like asking your question, do you have the same beliefs? Do you have the same values? Do you have the same rules? And we call this BVR because your beliefs, your values, and your rules are either going to have you and your spouse or significant other on the same page, or you're already going to be bucking it going into it.
I love that so much. And I think, again, this started with vision for us. When we came together, we wanted to leave our corporate jobs. Like that was a big thing. It's like we knew there was more to life. We wanted to start something that was going to be amazing. We felt like we wanted to do something and make a difference. And we accomplished that together. And I think that's really what kept us going is we had that bigger picture, that bigger vision. And then as we started to grow together as a couple, we realized, wow, like what else is possible here? Like we've already had this success. And, we started thinking about our lifestyle. Like how do we want our days to look? And we got this idea for an endless summer. We wanted to create an endless summer. And so we had a vision behind creating a life where we could enjoy an endless summer. We could spend time in the sun all the time, all year round. And so that's something that really kept us going, especially when times got hard. And maybe we can talk a little bit about that because I think that everyone can relate to this. I mean, you're going to be faced with challenges in your relationship. If you're trying to grow a business, if you're trying to get ahead in your career, and sometimes it's like, you just feel like you want to quit. You want to feel like you want to quit, and it's like sometimes you have to look at your partner and you're vulnerable. You're just like, oh my gosh, like I want to put up the red flag here of defeat. Like I can't do it anymore. And those are the moments where we're really tested. We're tested to say, like, what is this relationship made of? What can we do to support each other? And the thing I come back to is like the thing I will be forever grateful for is that we have always had each other's backs. No matter what was going on in our world, in our businesses, in our lives, in our relationships, we always had each other's backs. And I think that's really what got us through because we were so attached to this vision that we've always had. And that was something that I will always hold in my heart. I think that's been a big piece of what's really helped us to keep going.
Absolutely. Not only do we believe in each other and we love each other dearly, but we also have done a lot of the work. And that work has been personal growth or personal development, where we've read a ton of books. We've listened to a ton of CDs and podcasts. We've gone to, I don't know how many events we've been to around this planet, whether those are Tony Robbins or Joe Dispenza or some of the other real estate conferences we go to and Mind Valley conferences and so much. But I think that we are cut from a similar cloth, that the fabric of who we are and what we want has literally been discovered through the personal growth journey. So for those of you that might be new to personal growth, that's okay. Some of you might be intermediates and some of you might be experts. But the goal here is to really do what we call a personal inventory of seeing what are you on the same page with. And the very first thing, and Leesa learned this from her grandmother, who said, never go to bed angry. You want to share a little bit about why Grandma told us that the first time I met her?
Isn't it funny? Like we've got these timeless principles. And I remember that when I was a kid, my grandma was like, you know what? When you get married, you never go to bed angry. You never stay in an angry state. You've got to forgive each other before you go to bed. And it's so funny because when I think back to Trevor and I, when we have arguments, I will tell you guys, I'm telling the big wide world, Trevor can hang on for longer than I do. I want to repair it quickly. Like, I'm just like, okay, like, let's get back to peace, love, and joy and sing Kumbaya because I can't handle this. Like, I don't want to be in a bad state. And Trevor will hang on a little bit. And sometimes I'm like, Grandma said, like, you have to forgive me and we have to forgive each other before we go to bed tonight, and it's actually really helped us over the years to overcome the heat of the moment. And it's just like, you know what, like, let's just get back on the same page. And I think that comes back to, this is a really important point that we want to share with each other. And I think this is where we all go wrong in relationships is we forget that we're actually on the same team. And when you forget that you're on the same team, things can go wrong really fast because you are so set in your ways and you can get into this argument about something. And sometimes it can be something little and sometimes it can be something big. I mean, we're talking like, I'll tell you where I get really upset is like when it's something little and we're arguing about something little, then it makes it worse because I'm like, why are we arguing about this? We're trying to change the world here and we're talking about something so insignificant. But it's really about remembering that in the moments like day to day, we are on the same team, right? And it's not going to be easy. Like somebody's got to take out the garbage. Somebody's got to figure out who's cleaning the house. Somebody's got to cook the meals. Somebody's got to figure out how to reconcile the finances for the month. Like somebody's got to talk to the accountant. Like there's so many moving parts to running a business, growing a business, having a career, raising a family, and keeping your marriage happy and healthy. And so, it's not for the faint of heart, but if you can remember that you're on the same team, that is such a big piece. And that is the thing that we always come back to. It's like we are on the same team here. So when you can feel hard done by in your relationship, that's something that I know has really helped us. Like, let's talk a little bit more about it. Like, what's your perspective on that? Like being on the same team.
Well, I love that you shared that and you just used the word relationship. And if you really, seek to understand what that word even means, I think of it like two people on a boat sailing in a mutually beneficial direction, a relationship, two people on a boat having relations. And if you think about a ship, sometimes the ship's going to be sailing smooth through the water. And then there's the choppy seas where you feel like you're going up and down and are even going to survive. And that's really what, working with you and sometimes being in the business at the same time is all about. Sometimes it's a peaceful, serene, calm flow. And sometimes it's like the waves, I think, are going to take us out. But if we really look back at every single thing that we fought about or had disagreements about or questioned about each other, it all comes from really what we remember, which is that we're all different, that we're going to have different thoughts, different feelings, different perspectives. And I think that sometimes we as couples, and this is also speaking to some of the people that we coach, because we coach a lot of power couples out there, is they forget that there's two sides to every coin. In fact, if you look at a coin, there's actually three sides: the heads, the tails, and the ridge around the edge. And sometimes we get so set in our way that we want it to be one way that we forget that maybe the spouse's idea is a little bit better. Maybe it's not. But if we seek to listen, we could literally see a different way of thinking and behaving that could radically shift things for the better. So that's the very first thing that I'd say. And I also remind my clients at times that oftentimes we're wired differently. And we often say that men are wired for logic and women are wired for emotion. Now, of course, I'm, speaking to the opposite as well, that women have logic and men have emotion. But when you really think about it, for most of the people that I coach who have a dust up in their marriage, or they get into a fight, or they have what we call a speed bump, right? The husband is trying to take the logical point from A to B, and the women are wanting to open up a whole can of worms and talk about why, the dishwasher isn't unloaded and why the bed wasn't made and everything else. And we're trying to keep it about the business, and they're making it about the whole household. And it's kind of a big thing that kind of ends up going nowhere. So I digress, and I'll throw that over to you. Is that true or true?
I love that so much. And when you say women are wired for emotion, I laugh. I'm like, no, actually, women are wired for magic. Women are wired for magic. And I will tell you that behind the scenes, the biggest challenge that we have when it comes to our operating systems is we are very different, masculine and feminine. And for Trevor, he doesn't understand why me as a feminine woman I don't get my to-do list done every day. Like, my to-do list will either get done or it doesn't get done, right? So I can set an intention for all the things I want to do. But if that day has a different priority for me based on how I'm feeling and my intuition and what my vision process is for that day, and what the download that I got for that day, that inspiration and that feeling, that intuitive sense that I have, then that's going to override my to-do list. And so Trevor's number one thing is he comes to me and he's like, well, did you finish that thing? Did you do that? Did you do this? And I consider myself a high achiever. I consider myself I can get into peak performance, but the reality is that to-do list is not always my priority. My priority actually is creating space for the vision. My priority is getting into that feeling state, getting into that vibe, that vibration. And I know for myself, and I've done it time and time again to myself, if I get into that pattern of just to do, and working all the time and grinding, it's just my surefire path to basically being defeated. I realize that my operating system is different. I need to spend time in nature. I need to spend time connecting with myself, connecting with my family. And I know where I stand. And I'm at a point in my life where I've also had to reconcile maybe what I did in my 20s, and my capacity in my 20s was different to what it is now in my 40s. And I'm actually okay with that. And what I say now is, rather than working harder, it's about working smarter. And we say this all the time, because again, you can get into that cycle of anxiety and stress and overwhelm, and nobody wants to be in that cycle. And you've got to find a way to master your capacity. You've really got to know, like, what is it that I'm truly capable of? And if I have this level of capacity, what is it that I can do to get support so that I can accomplish the things that I want to accomplish and not burn myself out, not get into that pattern of stress and overwhelm? And I will tell you, we've been through this time and time again where sometimes we take on too much. We got too much on our plates, and that's where the problems start. That's where we get into that pattern of stress. That's when the arguments start. That's when it's like we start to nitpick, and we're getting into this pattern, and we call it the crazy cycle.
Yep.
And so when you're in the crazy cycle, it's like, wait a minute, like, we're kind of driving ourselves crazy here. Like, we're in a pattern, and it's not serving us. It's not serving our businesses. It's not serving our family life. And so it's really understanding and recognizing when we're in that crazy cycle. Where's our nervous system? Are we in that fight or flight? Have we got too much going on? How do we slow down again? How do we get back to pacing ourselves? I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that.
Well, it actually happens again when we take on too much. And again, we've got a lot going on in coaching, consulting, speaking, real estate, book publishing, right? And then taking people around the planet and helping them, navigate what's next for themselves. So again, at the end of the day, we also have to figure out what's truly important, Because again, if you're trying to juggle 12 different things at once, if those plates are going to fall and they're going to smash on the ground. So oftentimes we have to say to each other, all right, based on all of the different things we've got going on, what are our 5 to thrive, right? What are the 5 things that might be personal, they might be professional, but what's really urgent and important? And I think where most people fall down with this, they make everything urgent, right? Everything that you're doing is not urgent. Because if you think it is, you're missing the mark. You got to go back and ask what's truly important. And what's important is, having gratitude, right? It's having that forgiveness, right? It's having, the ability to take care of yourself and each other. And we call that the trifecta of gratitude, forgiveness, and self-care. Whereas if we practice it individually and we practice it as a couple, there's nothing better than to say, your spouse at dinner, what was the best part of your day, or what are you the most grateful for? And I can't even begin to tell you how many years we've always lit a gratitude candle at dinner, where we stop and we look at the candle and we'll say something in appreciation for each other. Even if we've had a tough day, even if the kids have been misbehaving, even if we've had a money lesson, right? At the end of the day, there's something about really speaking to your spouse about what's one great thing that happened in the business today and what's one great thing that happened outside of the business today. And that's where the magic begins.
I love that so much. And I think this also speaks to what I think has been sort of our recipe for success in being in business with each other. Like, we've been in business with each other for over a decade now. And I think what's really worked for us is that we have the open lines of communication. Like, nothing is off the table. Like, we don't brush things under the carpet. We talk about it and we create time and space. And I love that. On Sundays, we have our dreaming sessions. We're planning, we're designing our lives. We're thinking about things. We get on top of our to-do list and what the priorities are for the week. Sometimes I'll get to them, sometimes I don't. But we really talk about these things, right? So we're very, very open with each other. We've got a general plan for what we're doing. And I think that's very important, because I think sometimes couples get too busy and we expect that our partner is a mind reader. We expect our partner to really know what we're thinking or what we're going through. And this comes back to really the big piece I wanted to talk to as well, which is really having empathy and compassion for each other, okay? Because this is where we also fall down. If we can't see our partner's point of view, if we can't see what our partner is going through. And I will say, this is like an age-old argument. Oh my gosh, this is an age-old argument. I'm just going to call it like it is, okay? So when you're running a house and a family, the roles and responsibilities are going to be different in every family. But I think sometimes, particularly women who are taking on the responsibility of the household, right? You're taking on everything. You're taking on the cooking, the cleaning, the managing of the household. And your husband is taking on a different role. They're taking on, solely focused on career or making the money, whatever it is. The reality is we both have busy lives, whether you're a mother that's running a business, running a career, or you're just at home with your kids, you have just as much a load as your partner does, right? It doesn't matter if he's running the corporation and you're not, or you're both running the corporation. It's understanding that you both have a lot on your plate. There is not one single person, there's not one parent, one spouse that does not have a lot on their plate in this modern world that we live in. And so we've got to have compassion for each other. And I always tell Trevor, like, the most dangerous thing that he can say to me at the end of the day is, "What did you do today?" which actually makes me think, like, does he not know that I've been doing things all day? Like, I've been changing the world. Like, why are you asking me whether my to-do list was done? I've been busy changing the world. Like, we've got to really have compassion for our partners, because you sometimes don't realize how much they are doing in a day. You don't realize how tapped out they are. You don't realize they just had a difficult conversation with a client. You don't realize that they just had a challenge with their child. Like, the number one thing parents are going through right now, like the battle with technology, right? Like, we're going through this time and where we're trying to navigate this crazy world of technology and our kids, and that's playing into the marriage and all the things, right? And so we have to have compassion, right? Like, compassion for what we're doing as parents, as spouses. And I think it's very important to really tune into your partner every day. Find out, like, what's their model of the world? What are they going through? And this has been really effective for us. Maybe you can talk a little bit about, like, what our daily check-in is, like our mood meter. We talk about this a lot.
Yeah, what the mood meter is, and I'm so glad that we're able to share this, is really, at the end of the day, and we have so many different things going on personally, professionally, we will literally come to each other, post work. So it's usually at after 4:30 or 5 or 6, depending on what's going on that day. And we will literally look at each other and we'll say, you know what, Lisa, how's your mood meter today? Right? And that's an opportunity for her to give me a number on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 would be, oh my God, get out of the way. I've just had the hellish day from hell. And 10 would be, I'm doing really, had an amazing day. And she usually lands in that 6, 7, 8 range. So if she says, Trevor, I'm an 8 today, how's your mood meter? I'll say, well, I've had a really tough day. I'm at a 6. Do you know what she says to me? I've got your back. I've got your back. I've got you. We're going to have an amazing dinner. We're going to light the gratitude candle. We're going to put on music and we're going to make things happen. And the same is true when maybe she has a lower number one day. And I say, where's your mood meter? And she says, I'm at a 5. I'll say, you know what? Let's go out for dinner. Let me help you navigate some of the residue of your day and we can reset for tomorrow. And how powerful has that been for us so that we give it a number rather than, come up the stairs or come down the stairs and look at each other and someone's got a frown on their face or somebody's grumpy or somebody's yelling at the kids. I mean, how powerful has that been for us?
It's been incredibly powerful because, again, it goes back to really tuning in. At the end of the day, we want to make each other happy. Why are we in a relationship? We're here as part of our own growth and evolution together as a partnership. And it's important to come back to that, to realize, like, I want my partner to be happy. Like, I don't want to make them wrong or yell at them and be like, oh my gosh, like you're doing it all wrong. Like you're doing life wrong. Like that doesn't feel good. Like we want to talk about what we're doing right. We want to have compassion. Oh my gosh, you've had such a hard day. And I know for myself, I mean, this has been my constant this has been a constant in our relationship. It's like I look at Trevor and I just like my deepest desire for him is to have enjoyment out of life. I mean, this is part of why we're even doing coaching by the beach because we figured out like, oh my gosh, you can work hard. That to-do list never stops. That work is never going to end unless you make it end, unless you draw a line in the sand and say, okay, I'm done for the day. And now, I mean, Trevor and I, we talk about life design all the time. It's like, I want Trevor in the pool by 1 o'clock. Like he's got to go for a swim, right? And on the weekends, I want you in the ocean. I want you having an ocean swim. Like I'm always trying to design our days so that you can enjoy the things you love most, right? I want you to enjoy the things you love most. And especially during the weeks where you feel tapped out, don't get to the weekend and say, oh my gosh, I got so many chores to do. I've got to do laundry. I've got to do this and that. You got to make yourself a priority. And that comes back to, again, another important point, which is if you want your relationship to work, you got to take exquisite care of yourself as well,
Yep.
because you can't show up for your partner if you aren't taking care of yourself. And we've learned the hard way. Like
Yeah.
if we're tapped out, if we're strung out, if we're stressed out, we're not showing up for ourselves in the best way. We're not showing up for our family in the best way. And so we've got to take a few steps back.
Yeah.
And so this is really about designing life in such a way where you've got times where you're going to hustle, you've got times where you're going to flow, and you're giving yourself permission to take good care of yourself and slow down in the times you need to slow down so that you recalibrate and get back to being on the same page or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Now that's so good. And we make a point of date nights. We make a point of going out for, couples weekend where we might have a staycation at a local hotel, or we might go to a resort, or we might do something fun where there's no kids, there's no laptops, there's no cell phones. It's just Lisa and I connecting. And those are truly magical. Those are the times where we go back to why did we fall in love in the first place? And even though the world is a crazy place and it's getting crazier and busier, we create the space for grace to allow ourselves to reconnect, to, have a little bit of red wine, to have a bubble bath, right? To go to the pool or go to the spa. And really that's where we recharge our batteries. And if we don't, oftentimes we find ourselves in that grind where it all boils down to a lack of love and respect, where when we're grinding and I'm kind of like going at Lisa, what are you not doing? She feels unloved. And when she is giving me the gears, I feel disrespected. So that whole crazy 8 that you talk about, or the crazy cycle, and the ability to avoid, the lack of love or the lack of respect goes a long way when you've got the date night, the spas, the travel, the fun, the giggles, and nobody makes me laugh more than you. This woman is truly one of a kind, and I've got a sense of humor sometimes that goes the other
All the
way,
time.
but I'm telling you, this is how you as a couple can really start to navigate life and business together. So with that said, I'd love to get into our 3 to thrive. And so Leesa, let's kick it off with that powerful question number 1.
I think the question you can ask yourself when it comes to your relationship and navigating life and business is, do some journaling on like, what is it that you want most for your partner? Like, what is it that brought you together in the first place? And what was that bigger picture? Like, what was that vision that you had for your relationship? Start journaling on that. What do you want most for your partner? It's not just about you, it's about them. Make it about them. Like, what is it like? What makes them happy, and what can you do to create that level of happiness for them in service to the relationship? So, really start to think about that.
I love that. Question 2 for me is really to create that dream board or do the vision boards that you and I have done for 15 years now, where you get together and you create a masterpiece of all of the pictures or the images or the feelings of what you want to call into the future. Where do you want to travel? How much money do you want to make, right? How much fun do you want to have with your kids before they head off to college and start a life of their own? And I think that if a picture is worth 1,000 words, and we've got more vision boards in our house than probably most people, you can also do mind movies, right? Where Leesa's become so good at creating reels on her iPhone of all of the cool things that we want to feel, right? Because it's the feeling that gets us into the vibration. It's the vibration that gets us into the frequency. And it's the frequency where we both, have this amplitude where it goes out into the ether that we are able to co-create stuff personally and in business that is absolutely magical. So that's question number 2, and bring it home with question number 3.
What are your values? Start to really ask yourself that question, like, what do I value most? What do I value most in life? What do I value most about this relationship? And sometimes it's remembrance. It's in our darkest times when our relationship is challenged at the hardest times, like come back to the heart. Like, what is it that brought you together in the first place? What are those shared values? And I think if you remind yourself, like, what is it that made you fall in love in the first place? If you can remind yourself of that more, it's like, I think there was a book written about that, The Honeymoon Effect, it's like, get back into that vibe. And there's never a better time to do it. We're always busy. There's always an excuse for having all these other things to do, urgency over what's important. This is important. This is really, really important. Remind yourself, why did you come together in the first place? What are those values that brought you together? And share that with your partner. Like, just talk about it. Be like, you know what, sweetheart, this is the thing that made me fall in love with you, Like Trevor tells a story about his grandmother's store. Like, I fell in love with that story. I fell in love with you because of your past, your journey, like who you are today. That's what made me love you from the very beginning. So I think that's a really powerful way to get back on the same page and remember why you're doing this together in the first place.
I love it. And that'll do it. So thank you very much. And again, we want to thank you for all of the comments, all of the questions, all the DMs, all of the texts, all of the stuff that you're providing, as it's giving us so many cool ideas for future episodes. And guys, there's no topic that's off limits. If you want us to talk about it, we will talk about it. So with that said, Leesa, any final words before we wrap?
Peace, love, and palm trees.
Thank you so much. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for joining us today at Coaching by the Beach. If this episode helps you to see your path to more success, more wealth, freedom, and fulfillment, we'd love your support.
Remember to subscribe on your favorite platform.
Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
And don't let your journey stop here. Connect with us in our community of like-minded achievers on all social platforms at Coaching by the Beach.
We're excited to continue exploring this path to freedom with you.